When Tessa called my husband honey at the barbecue, I laughed it off. Until I saw Colin's face. Why didn't he deny it? The late afternoon sun was still warm, casting golden light over the neat lawns and two-story homes of Willow Glen Drive. Suburban Dallas in spring, with the air buzzing from the laughter of neighborhood kids, the clatter of folding chairs, and the steady hiss of a gas grill. The Whitaker backyard, fenced, immaculate, dotted with potted geraniums, smelled of marinated chicken and sweet corn, a scent that had come to mean family to Marlene. Marlene Whitaker, 38, stood by a folding banquet table, arranging a line of salads and side dishes with practiced movements. She couldn't help but feel a little pride at the sight of her home. White siding gleaming, patio swept clean, cushions fluffed on the outdoor sofa. The sound of Ethan, her 12-year-old son, calling out from the yard, mingled with the music playing softly from a Bluetooth speaker. She wiped her hands on her apron and smiled, watching Ethan chase a soccer ball with two other boys from the neighborhood, his laughter ringing out above the grown-up chatter. She glanced toward the grill, where her husband Colin was flipping burgers, spatula in hand. He was tall and a little broad at the shoulders, his sandy hair ruffled by the breeze, glasses slipping down his nose in the Texas heat. He'd rolled up his sleeves and was talking with Tessa Drummond, their new neighbor, who'd moved in only a few months before. Tessa was hard to miss. Her laugh was bright and infectious, her presence big and bold for someone of average height. She wore her auburn hair in a messy bun, sunglasses perched on top of her head, and a floral sundress that caught the last rays of sunlight. Tessa had a way of making everyone feel like an old friend, and she'd quickly become a fixture at neighborhood events, always ready to lend a hand or offer a joke. Marlene liked her, at least she wanted to. Tessa was funny, generous with her time, and her son Mason had already become good friends with Ethan. Still, sometimes Tessa's confidence was almost too much. She was always the first to arrive, the last to leave, and lately, she seemed to have formed a fast connection with Colin. Marlene brushed the thought aside, focusing on the crunch of celery as she tossed it into the potato salad. The backyard was alive with movement. Ethan's soccer game zigzagged across the grass, while smaller children darted between coolers and picnic tables, parents trailing after them with gentle warnings. Marlene's friend Janice, another PTA mom, was filling cups at the drinks table, her voice floating above the din. The hum of conversation, the clang of grill tools, the promise of an easy evening, Marlene took it all in, grateful for the normalcy. She noticed Tessa leaning in closer to Colin, gesturing animatedly with a pair of tongs. Colin grinned, nodding as Tessa recounted a story, something about a disastrous attempt at making pancakes last weekend. Judging by her wild hand motions and Colin's amused expression, Marlene felt a small, familiar flutter of pride. Colin was a good man. He worked hard, managed a team of engineers at a local tech firm, and despite late hours or work calls, always made time for family. Lately, though, he seemed more distracted. There was a new project at work he wouldn't talk much about. He spent more time on his phone, sometimes laughing at texts Marlene didn't see. She'd chalked it up to work stress. The food was ready. Marlene called everyone over. Plates were passed, burgers piled high, salads scooped generously. Neighbors found seats in clusters, kids sitting cross-legged on the grass, adults settling in with paper plates balanced on their knees. Marlene made sure everyone had what they needed, refilling drinks and passing napkins, her smile automatic. She heard Tessa's voice float over from the grill. "Hey, honey, can you hand me the ketchup?" It was too casual, almost a joke, the kind of thing friends say when they're comfortable. Marlene, mid-pour of lemonade, laughed along with the others. But then she looked at Colin. He didn't laugh. He didn't flinch or make a joke, or even glance at Marlene. He just handed Tessa the bottle, a small, polite smile on his lips, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Marlene's breath caught. For a second, she felt as if she was watching the scene from outside herself. The way Colin's hand lingered on the ketchup, the way Tessa's fingers brushed his, the way neither of them seemed to notice or care that Marlene was standing right there. A neighbor cracked a joke about domestic bliss, and everyone laughed, but Marlene's ears rang with the sound of her own heartbeat. She forced herself to smile, to keep moving, to not let it show. But inside, something felt suddenly, shakily, out of place. As the evening wore on, the party settled into a comfortable rhythm. Children's shouts turned to yawns, parents exchanged goodbyes. The sun dipped below the fence, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink. Marlene cleaned up plates, her hands moving automatically. Colin was still by the grill, now talking with Tessa and Janice, their voices low. Marlene caught herself watching them, searching for signs. Was she imagining things? Was she being petty, jealous, ridiculous? She tried to shake it off, but the question gnawed at her. If it had just been a slip, an innocent nickname, why hadn't Colin laughed it off? Why hadn't he said something, anything, to set the record straight? The house was quiet by 10 p.m. Ethan already tucked in and asleep, the hum of the dishwasher the only sound. Marlene stood at the kitchen sink, staring out into the darkness of the backyard, the string lights on the patio still glowing softly. She watched Colin outside, gathering up the last of the chairs, Tessa lingering with him, her voice low and warm. Marlene's phone buzzed, a message from Janice. "You did great tonight. Everyone had fun. Hope you can relax now." Marlene stared at the message for a long moment, then replied with a smiling emoji. But her mind replayed that moment at the grill, over and over. Tessa's easy honey, Colin's silence, the way the world seemed to slow down for just a heartbeat. She tried to remember the last time Colin had called her honey. Had it been days? Weeks? She couldn't recall. Marlene lay awake that night, the ceiling fan spinning shadows across the room. Colin came to bed late, mumbling about early meetings. His back turned before she could even say goodnight. She stared at the ceiling, her mind racing with questions she didn't dare ask. Was it just a slip of the tongue, or was it something more? Was she overreacting, or was her intuition trying to warn her? The next morning, the house was busy with the routines of daily life. Ethan's backpack half-zipped, cereal bowls clinking. Colin already dressed for work and checking his phone at the kitchen counter. Marlene said nothing about the night before, but every glance, every word, felt heavier, as if waiting for something to break. She watched Colin leave, his car disappearing down the street. She looked around her kitchen, the sunlight on the countertops, the fridge covered in Ethan's drawings, the faint scent of last night's barbecue lingering in the air. It should have felt like home, but a chill crept in. Later, as she loaded the dishwasher, Marlene found herself lost in thought. Tessa's laughter, Colin's smile, the easy way they talked. Was it just friendship, or was she missing something right in front of her? At noon, Tessa texted, "Thanks for hosting. We should have coffee this week. Let me know." Marlene stared at the screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She typed, "Of course. Let's plan for Thursday." Her reply was chipper, but her stomach twisted. She spent the rest of the day replaying the scene in her mind, searching for clues, for comfort, for some answer that would make sense of it all. She wanted to trust Colin, to believe the best of her friend. But the doubt was there now, a shadow at the edge of every memory. That afternoon, as she walked to the mailbox, Marlene watched Tessa pull into her driveway across the street. Tessa waved, beaming, her son Mason tumbling out of the car behind her. Marlene waved back, her smile practiced, questions swirling just beneath the surface. Inside, Ethan was sprawled on the couch, flipping through a comic book. "Mom, are we going to Mason's house this weekend?" he asked. "Maybe," Marlene replied, her voice gentle. "We'll see." She stood in the hallway, hand on the wall, the weight of the day pressing down. She didn't want to jump to conclusions, to let suspicion poison her friendships or her marriage. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that an invisible line had been crossed, and she was the only one who'd noticed. As the sun set over Willow Glen Drive, Marlene sat on the porch, watching families return home, the neighborhood settling into its quiet evening routine. She felt alone in a way she hadn't in years. She turned over the question in her mind, again and again, until it became a whisper she couldn't ignore. What would you do if your friend overstepped like that? The next morning, the barbecue's cheery afterglow felt like a distant memory. Marlene Whitaker stood by the kitchen window, clutching a mug of coffee, watching the sun rise over the rooftops of Willow Glen Drive. The sound of the dishwasher cycling in the background was calming, but her mind was anything but quiet. She replayed the moment from the day before, Tessa's laughter, the playful honey, and Colin's unreadable face. At the time, Marlene had forced herself to smile, brushing it off as a harmless slip. Yet the unease lingered. She'd seen a flicker in Colin's eyes when Tessa said it, something that didn't fit with his usual easygoing nature. Marlene glanced at the kitchen table. Ethan, their 12-year-old son, was hunched over a bowl of cereal, tapping away at his phone. Colin, dressed in his crisp work shirt, stood by the counter, scrolling through emails. The ordinary scene felt slightly off, like a picture hung askew. She cleared her throat. "Colin, did you sleep okay?" He looked up, distracted. "Yeah, just thinking about a deadline. I might have to log in late tonight." He gave her a quick smile, then his attention was back on his phone. Ethan, oblivious, slurped his milk. "Mom, can Tessa's son come over after soccer?" Marlene hesitated. "Let me talk to his mom first, okay?" The mention of Tessa's name made her stomach tighten. Marlene moved to the sink, rinsing dishes that didn't need rinsing, buying herself a moment. She thought about how quickly Tessa had become part of their lives since moving in 3 months ago. There were the school runs, PTA meetings, and now invitations to barbecues and family dinners. Tessa was everywhere. Always cheerful, always ready with a joke or a compliment. That afternoon, after school pickup, Marlene found herself pulling up behind Tessa's SUV in the crowded school parking lot. Parents milled about, waving to teachers and herding their kids toward minivans. Tessa waved her over, her red hair catching the afternoon light. "Marlene, I saved you a spot in the carpool line," Tessa called, grinning. Marlene forced a smile and walked over, trying to keep her tone light. "Thanks. How was your day?" "Oh, you know, chaos as usual. By the way, is Ethan still good for that play date?" Tessa's eyes sparkled with genuine warmth. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "And thanks again for having me yesterday. You and Colin throw the best parties." Marlene felt heat prickling at her cheeks. "We had fun. Glad you could make it." Before she could say more, Tessa's phone buzzed. She answered with an easy laugh. "Hey there, sugar. No, I'm just talking to Marlene." She winked and mouthed, "My mom." Marlene exhaled, chiding herself for being paranoid. Tessa was just friendly. That was her way. Maybe she was reading too much into things. Still, the honey echoed in her mind like a song she couldn't turn off. That night, after Ethan had gone to bed, Marlene sat at the kitchen island, reviewing the PTA agenda for next week. The kitchen was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Colin entered, loosening his tie, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion. She watched him for a moment, searching for traces of the man she married. Steady, patient, present. Lately he seemed so far away, always occupied by work, always somewhere else in his mind. "Long day?" she asked softly. He nodded, pouring himself a glass of water. "You could say that. New client is demanding. I've got to finish a few things tonight." Marlene hesitated. "Colin, about yesterday, when Tessa—" He cut her off gently. "She's just being Tessa. You know how she is." His words were meant to reassure, but they landed with a thud. He didn't look at her as he spoke, already reaching for his laptop. Marlene bit her lip, fighting the urge to press the issue. Was she being silly? Or was she ignoring something important? The following morning, Marlene met her friend Janice Byers for coffee at Common Grounds, the local cafe that doubled as PTA headquarters. The place was bustling, baristas shouting orders, the smell of cinnamon rolls, the chatter of parents catching up after school drop-off. Janice was already settled at a corner table, her reading glasses perched on her nose, PTA notes spread out before her. She looked up as Marlene approached, eyes kind and knowing. "Hey, stranger," Janice said, waving her over. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Marlene managed a laugh. "No ghosts. Just tired." Janice sipped her coffee, waiting. Marlene knew Janice well enough to recognize that look, patient, gentle, but persistent. So she told her about the barbecue, about Tessa's honey, about Colin's silence. Janice listened without interrupting, her expression thoughtful. "Have you talked to Colin about how you feel?" Marlene shook her head. "I tried." He brushed it off. "Maybe I'm overreacting. Tessa's just friendly. But it's not just the words. It's the way she talks to him, the way he doesn't seem to mind." Janice reached across the table, squeezing Marlene's hand. "Listen, Marlene. Sometimes people get comfortable, too comfortable. But you know your husband better than anyone. If something feels off, it's okay to trust your gut. But don't jump to conclusions. Have a real conversation with Colin. Don't let doubt eat you up from the inside." Marlene nodded, grateful for the advice but still uncertain. "What if I ruin things by bringing it up again?" Janice gave her a wry smile. "You won't. Trust me. The only thing that ruins marriages is silence." As Marlene drove home, Janice's words echoed in her mind. The spring sun glinted off windshields as she pulled into her driveway. She watched as Tessa's SUV rolled by, her son waving from the back seat. Tessa honked and smiled. Marlene waved back, but her heart wasn't in it. The next week passed in a blur of routine, packing lunches, shuttling Ethan to soccer practice, attending PTA meetings. But beneath the surface, Marlene's anxiety grew. She noticed small things. A text from Tessa to Colin confirming playdates. Colin's laughter at a joke she didn't hear. The way he seemed lost in thought at dinner. One evening, Marlene found Colin in the living room, typing away on his laptop. She perched on the arm of the sofa, watching him. "Remember when we used to have Friday movie nights?" she said quietly. He looked up, startled. "Yeah. We should do that again sometime." Marlene smiled, but it felt fragile. "You've just been different lately." Colin closed his laptop, rubbing his temples. "I'm sorry, Marlene. Work's been stressful. I'm trying to keep up." She hesitated, then pressed on. "And Tessa? You two seem to get along really well." He sighed. "She's just friendly. She talks to everyone that way." Marlene nodded, but the conversation left her unsettled. Was she making something out of nothing? Or was she ignoring warning signs right in front of her? That weekend, the PTA hosted a fundraising breakfast at the local elementary school. Marlene arrived early to help set up, arranging stacks of pancakes and pouring orange juice. Janice handed her a clipboard, shooting her a reassuring smile. A few minutes later, Tessa breezed in, arms full of pastries. "Morning. I brought extra muffins. Colin said he loves blueberry." She said it loudly, and Marlene caught a few PTA moms glancing over with raised eyebrows. Marlene forced herself to smile. "Thanks, Tessa. That's thoughtful." Tessa grinned. "Anything for your family." The morning was a whirlwind of activity, but Marlene watched as Tessa moved easily among the parents, chatting and laughing, always a little too familiar with Colin, who had arrived to help serve. She noticed the way they seemed to share inside jokes, the way Tessa's hand lingered on Colin's arm as she passed him a tray. Marlene's confidence wavered. Was this just Tessa's personality, or was there something more? After the event, Marlene and Janice sat together in the empty school cafeteria, the tables littered with paper cups and syrup bottles. Marlene felt drained, her anxiety now a constant hum. Janice leaned in, her voice low. "You know, you can always talk to me, but you need to talk to Colin. Don't let this fester." Marlene nodded, her eyes stinging. "I just want to feel like I belong in my own family again." She stared out the window, watching families trickle out into the bright Saturday morning. Her reflection in the glass looked tired and uncertain. Voiceover, soft but determined. "Have you ever felt left out in your own family? subscribe to hear what I did next. As she gathered her things and headed for home, Marlene knew she couldn't put off the conversation forever. The question wasn't just about Tessa or Colin anymore. It was about herself and what she was willing to do to protect the life she'd built. And as the suburban streets of Willow Glen stretched out before her, Marlene realized the hardest part was still to come. A stack of white plastic cups toppled, rolling across the floor of the elementary school gymnasium. Marlene bent to scoop them up, her hands trembling ever so slightly. The PTA's annual Spring into Learning night was winding down, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as the last of the parents filtered out. Folding chairs scraped, laughter echoed in the hallway, and the air held the faint tang of lemonade and crayon. In the flurry of cleanup, Marlene's mind was a storm of unfinished thoughts, lists and worries, fragments of the day, and threading through them all, the persistent doubt that had taken root in her chest. She glanced across the gym. Tessa, in a cherry-red blouse, was chatting animatedly with a group of mothers, her laugh carrying easily over the din. She was magnetic, as always. Everyone seemed to orbit her. Marlene watched as Colin, sleeves rolled up, helped stack tables along the far wall. He caught Tessa's eye and grinned, something quick and familiar passing between them. Marlene felt her heart contract. Janice sidled up with a stack of leftover flyers. "You look like you could use a break," she teased gently, her eyes sharp with concern. Marlene managed a smile but couldn't keep the tension from her voice. "I just want everything to go smoothly," she said. "It's been a long week." Janice squeezed her arm. "You always make it look easy. Let me handle the rest of the drinks. Go see if Colin needs help." Marlene nodded, but lingered, pressing the toe of her shoe into a sticky patch on the linoleum. She remembered Janice's advice a few nights before, about trust, about not letting doubts fester. But the images kept replaying. Tessa's hand on Colin's arm at the barbecue, the late-night texts Marlene glimpsed on Colin's phone. "Just checking in on that spreadsheet, ha ha ha, you're a lifesaver." The way her husband seemed to withdraw into his screen at night. She walked slowly toward the stage, passing a cluster of PTA moms who offered tired waves. Someone had left a tray of cookies on the piano. Marlene paused, then kept moving. She traced the length of the gym, heart thumping, until she heard voices from behind the heavy navy blue curtain. "You always come through." Tessa's voice, low and teasing, drifted out. Marlene stopped, breath caught. She pressed her palm against the cold cinder block wall, just out of sight. Colin's voice, softer. "It was nothing, really. You did most of the work." "Oh, honey," Tessa said, and the word was unmistakable this time. Gentle, affectionate, intimate. "Don't be so modest." There was a pause. Marlene's pulse roared in her ears. She waited for Colin to laugh, to correct her, to draw a boundary. Instead, his voice came almost bashful. "Well, thanks. I'm glad to help." Something inside Marlene twisted. Her foot shifted, squeaking against the floor. The voices stopped abruptly. Tessa emerged a moment later, a bright, practiced smile on her face. "Oh, Marlene, we were just finishing up the last of the posters. You want us to bring them out?" Colin appeared behind her, cheeks flushed, eyes flicking quickly from Tessa to Marlene. "Hey, babe. All done here." For a moment, Marlene couldn't find her words. She nodded, turning away before her face betrayed her confusion. The rest of the cleanup passed in a blur. She moved on autopilot, folding chairs, stacking trays, murmured goodbyes, her mind replaying every detail. The drive home was silent except for the hiss of the car's air conditioning. Ethan had gone home with a teammate after soccer, giving Marlene and Colin rare quiet. Marlene gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white against the leather. Streetlights flickered past, long shadows stretching across sidewalks, the hush of evening settling over the neighborhood. Colin stared out the passenger window, scrolling through emails on his phone. Marlene cleared her throat, voice tight. "Did you get everything done at the gym?" Colin glanced at her. "Yeah. Tessa really knocked it out of the park. She's got more energy than all of us put together." Marlene's fingers drummed the wheel. She called you honey again. Did you notice? He hesitated. Did she? I guess I didn't pick up on it. Marlene let out a humorless laugh. It's the second time. The first was at the barbecue. I thought maybe it was just her way. She's friendly with everyone. But tonight, it felt different. Colin shifted in his seat, uneasy. She's just being nice, Mar. Is she? Marlene's voice sharpened. Or is there something I should know? He frowned. Come on, Marlene. You know I'd tell you if there was anything. She turned the car onto their street, headlights sweeping over the tidy lawns and trimmed hedges. Her voice trembled. It's not just the honey, Colin. It's the way you look at her. The late texts. You're distracted all the time. I feel like I'm losing you and I don't even know why. Colin rubbed his forehead. Work's been crazy. And Tessa. She's new here. She doesn't really have anyone. I was just trying to help her settle in. They pulled into the driveway. The porch light glowed softly over the front steps, welcoming and ordinary, a scene Marlene once found comforting, now strangely distant. Inside, the house was quiet. Marlene dropped her purse by the door, toed off her shoes, and moved to the kitchen. She started rinsing dishes they'd left in the sink earlier, the sound of water loud in the silence. Colin hovered in the doorway, uncertain. She turned, dish towel in hand. I need you to be honest with me, Colin. Completely. Because I can't keep pretending everything's fine. He swallowed, words slow and deliberate. There's nothing going on, Marlene. Not like you think. But I guess I haven't discouraged her as much as I should have. Marlene's breath caught. Why not? Colin's eyes dropped to the counter. He paused, searching for words. You know how things have been. Work, the house, Ethan's schedule. Sometimes it feels like we're just passing each other. Tessa noticed. She's easy to talk to. She listens. I didn't want to hurt her feelings by pushing her away. Maybe I liked the attention, just a little. But it never went further than that. I swear. The room felt tight, the air heavy with unspoken things. Marlene's hands shook as she gripped the edge of the sink. So, you let her call you honey? Because you liked it? He shook his head. No, not exactly. I just didn't want to make things awkward. I should have stopped it. I'm sorry. Marlene stared at him, searching his face for any sign of deceit. The lines around his eyes looked deeper, his mouth drawn tight. She saw exhaustion, regret, and something else, a vulnerability she hadn't noticed in months. She turned away, tears threatening. I feel like I'm losing myself, Colin, like I'm not enough anymore. Colin stepped forward, his voice rough. You are enough. I'm the one who's been absent, not you. I messed up. I should have put up boundaries. I should have talked to you, not her. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. Marlene wiped her eyes, anger and relief warring inside her. I need you to set those boundaries now. For us. For our family. He nodded, voice barely above a whisper. I will. Later that night, after Ethan was home and asleep, Marlene sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her reflection in the vanity mirror. She looked tired, older than she remembered. The house was quiet, but her mind buzzed. A soft knock at the door startled her. Colin entered, holding 2 mugs of tea. He sat beside her, silent for a long moment. I talked to Tessa after you left the gym, he said, voice steady. I told her I need to focus on my marriage, that I can't be the person she leans on for everything. She understood. I should have done it sooner. Marlene nodded, emotions swirling, hurt, relief, hope. Thank you. He reached for her hand. I want to fix this, Mar. I'm here. I promise. She believed him. At least she wanted to. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, Marlene felt a small measure of control return. She exhaled, the tension in her shoulders easing, if only a little. The truth was raw, but it was out. That was the beginning she needed. And as the moonlight crept across the hardwood floor, Marlene realized the answer she'd been searching for wasn't about Tessa at all. It was about the space that had grown between her and Colin, and whether they were brave enough to cross it together. The payout, finally clear. Colin hadn't denied Tessa's honey because he craved the affirmation he was missing at home, not because of a secret affair. The real threat wasn't Tessa, but the silent distance that had crept into their marriage, unnoticed, until now. Marlene sat at the edge of her bed, the bedroom lamp casting a soft golden pool over the quilt. The house was quiet now. Ethan had gone to bed after a long day, and the echo of laughter from the barbecue seemed a lifetime ago. She traced the stitching on the comforter with her finger, replaying the scene in her mind. Tessa's easy, almost offhand, honey, the flicker in Colin's eyes, the way he hadn't corrected her. It was such a small thing, but it had grown heavy in Marlene's chest, twisting into every quiet moment of her day. She heard Colin's footsteps in the hallway before he appeared in the doorway, his silhouette outlined by the hallway light. He paused, as if sensing the tension in the air. Marlene looked up, meeting his gaze. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Colin hesitated, then came to sit beside her. The mattress dipped, shifting them closer together. For a long moment, neither spoke. Marlene inhaled, steadying herself. "I need to ask you something," she began. "About Tessa, the way she talks to you sometimes. And today, at the cleanup after the PTA event, she called you honey again. Not as a joke. It felt different. And you didn't say anything. I just need to know what's going on." Colin's brow furrowed. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. "I noticed it," he admitted. "But honestly, I didn't know how to react. I thought if I made a big deal about it, it would be awkward for everyone. I guess I froze up. I'm sorry." Marlene pressed her lips together. "It's not just today. She's here a lot. She messages you. I see you both laughing at things I don't understand. I feel left out. And I hate that I'm starting to doubt both of you." Colin shook his head, his eyes earnest. "Marlene, there's nothing between me and Tessa, I promise you. She's just friendly. Too friendly, maybe. I should have said something to her, set a boundary. I didn't realize it was making you uncomfortable. That's on me." He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "Work has been so busy, and I know I haven't been around as much. I'm sorry for that, too. But you're my wife. You're the one I come home to. I don't want you to ever feel like you're on the outside." Marlene's eyes stung, but she blinked back tears. "I just want us to be honest with each other. I need to know that if something feels wrong, we can talk about it, even if it's hard." Colin nodded, his grip firm. "You're right. I should have talked to you sooner. I'll talk to Tessa. I'll make it clear that what she said isn't appropriate, not in front of you. Or anyone." A silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but full of the things left unsaid. For the first time in weeks, Marlene felt the tension begin to unravel. The next morning was brisk and bright, the kind of Texas day that promised heat by noon but started with a gentle breeze. Marlene stood at the kitchen window with her mug of coffee, watching Ethan dribble a soccer ball across the lawn. She felt lighter, as though she'd finally set down a burden she'd been carrying for too long. Colin appeared beside her, already dressed for work. He paused, looking at her with an expression both soft and serious. "I'm going to talk to Tessa today," he said. "I'll be clear with her. And I want us to make more time for each other, okay? I don't want my work or anything else coming between us." Marlene smiled, relief settling in her chest. "I'd like that." When Colin left for work, Marlene called Janice. They met at the local coffee shop, sunlight streaming through the windows as they took their usual seats in the corner. Janice listened as Marlene recounted the conversation from the night before, the doubts, the confrontation, and the relief that followed. "I'm proud of you for talking to him," Janice said, stirring her coffee. "Most people would just let it fester. You faced it head on." Marlene shrugged. "I was scared, but I realized I couldn't keep living in my own head. I had to trust him. And trust myself, too. Janice nodded. That's real strength, Marlene. And it's what keeps a marriage going, even when things get messy. It was a few days before Marlene saw Tessa again. She was in the front yard, planting new flowers, when Tessa's SUV pulled into her driveway. Tessa hopped out, waving cheerfully. "Hey, Marlene!" she called, walking over with her usual sunny smile. Marlene returned the greeting, her heart thumping with anticipation. She noticed Colin's car parked at the curb. He had texted her earlier to say he'd be home early. Tessa glanced at the flower beds. "Your garden always looks amazing. I keep trying to keep my roses alive, but I think they hate me." Marlene smiled politely, but before she could reply, Colin stepped out onto the porch. Tessa waved to him. "Hey there, honey." She stopped mid-sentence, glancing at Marlene, then at Colin. The pause hung in the air, awkward and unmistakable. Colin cleared his throat, stepping forward. "Tessa, I wanted to talk to you for a second." Tessa's smile faltered. "Sure. Is everything okay?" Colin glanced at Marlene, then back at Tessa. "I just wanted to ask, could you stop calling me honey? It makes Marlene uncomfortable, and honestly, it's not really appropriate." Tessa blinked, cheeks flushing pink. "Oh, wow, I didn't even realize." "I'm so sorry, Marlene. I guess I'm just used to being overly familiar with people. Old habit from growing up in a big family, I guess." Marlene nodded, her voice gentle. "I understand, but it's important to me." Tessa placed her hand over her heart. "Absolutely. I'll be more careful." "I'm really sorry if I made things weird." The air cleared, the tension dissipating as quickly as it had risen. Tessa excused herself, giving Marlene a quick hug before heading inside. Colin looked at Marlene, an unspoken question in his eyes. "Are we okay?" Marlene smiled, feeling a sense of closure she hadn't known she needed. "We're okay," she assured him. That evening, Marlene set the table for dinner, the aroma of roasted potatoes and chicken filling the house. Ethan bounded in, chattering about his day, while Colin helped with the dishes. The ordinary rhythm of family life returned, but Marlene sensed something had shifted. There was a new honesty, a quiet understanding that hadn't been there before. After dinner, the three of them sat together on the patio, watching the sky fade from pink to indigo. Fireflies began to flicker above the grass, and laughter drifted from a neighbor's backyard. Marlene leaned back, closing her eyes for a moment, savoring the peace. She realized that trust wasn't about never doubting. It was about having the courage to face doubt together, to ask hard questions, and to listen for the answers. She had confronted her fears, spoken up for herself, and found her voice again. Later, as she tucked Ethan in, he hugged her tightly. "I love you, Mom," he murmured. Marlene kissed his forehead, her heart full. "I love you too, buddy. Always." When the house was quiet again, Marlene sat at her desk and opened her laptop. She started to write, her words flowing easily. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family or struggled to trust the people you love, you're not alone. I learned that speaking up, no matter how scared you feel, can be the first step toward healing. And sometimes, the hardest conversations lead to the strongest connections. She paused, smiling to herself. Then she looked directly into the camera, her voice warm and steady. "I'd really love to know. Have you ever had a moment like this, where you had to speak up for yourself or your family? What gave you the courage?" Share your story in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more real-life confessions and honest moments. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. We're all learning and growing together here, one story at a time. The screen faded on Marlene's gentle smile, the lingering sense of hope and resolution carrying through the closing music. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust yourself and those you love, and let that honesty light the way forward.